Yes, hello again and welcome back to the latest episode of Classic Dirt Bike TV, where we continue to check out more of those old school, vintage and classic race bikes from back in the day. Now, as we head towards the 15,000 subscribers total, I'd just like to say a quick thank you out to everybody out there for your continuing support of my channel. And if these old school dirt bikes are the kind of things that you like to look at here on YouTube, then I hope you will consider subscribing to my channel in the future, because we have some fantastic race bikes lined up for you to take a look at. Okay, coming up next, we're going to take a look at a bike that I filmed quite a few years back now, and this was a bike I spotted at the famous Nostalgia Scramble some years back. Now, it's not your average run-of-the-mill pre-70 old-fashioned dirt bike. This is a very special machine indeed. So without any further delay, let's just jump into the video and take a look at this lovely Balco 475 Rickman Metisse Scrambler. Now, as I said, this featured bike here is a machine that I captured some time ago while I was attending the annual Nostalgia Scramble, but it's such an unusual bike and so different from other BSA Scramblers we've seen in the past. It's surely worth another look here on my channel. Now, the bike was originally put together by Paul Balsillie, and Paul has a very good reputation for building these very special types of off-road scramblers, and Paul also builds one-off trial bike specials through his Balco motorcycles company. Now, at the time I took these pictures and video clips, the bike at that time was owned and ridden by Colin Lee, who had just recently purchased the machine from Paul Balsillie, although I'm not really sure if Colin had anything to do with picking this particular colour scheme of this bike. But then again, Balco motorcycles were always that little bit different from the normal run-of-the-mill classic scrambles machines, and although their bikes were quite radical and different from the rest, they were always immaculately turned out and superbly engineered. So if we start with the bike's chassis, which is more or less just a stock Mark III Rickman Metisse frame kit that has all of its other associated parts bolted onto it that come in the kit, including the swing arm, the tank, side panels and front and rear mudguards. And in our case here, the chassis and the swing arm have been nickel plated. But that's the beauty of these frame kits from Rickman. You can just basically take a stock frame kit and then put your own personal touches to it, as Paul has done here. Although when it comes to the construction of these Rickman chassis, the engineering is just superb, which is another reason that makes these chassis so popular with many classic riders all over the globe. Now again, as you know, Rickman in their wisdom used the chassis as an engine oil storage tank, whereby you remove this small fillet cap on top of the frame and then filled it with oil, whereby it was then pumped around the motor and then fed back into the chassis. Now once again, and just like the rest of this machine, this BSA motor is certainly no ordinary 1960s power plant, as this engine here has had plenty cash spent on it to improve its overall performance and reliability. But essentially the engine is a BSA 475 Victor PES Type R engine that's had a big valve cylinder head fitted with Collisbro valve guides. Now the head has also had some tuning work done to it, with the cylinder head having been machined for optimum performance, and the cylinder's exhaust port has also been bored out to improve the gas flow. Now as we move to the transmission side, now the original standard clutch was replaced with a stronger PES heavy-duty racing clutch, which again is of much better quality than the stock BSA original, and this will be able to handle the increase in power from the Victor motor after all of its upgrades have been completed. Now, also on the top end of this Victor motor, the camshaft has had a ball bearing conversion done, and then a JI MX race cam has then been fitted, which will make sure that those big valves will open and close at their optimum efficiency. Now, that big bore BSA 475 cylinder also has a Nickel barrel, and the bore is said to be 18 millimeters, and the stroke is worked out at around 90 millimeters. And it also has a CCM Carrillo conrod and crankshaft, which again are all upgrades on the stock BSA items. Now, as you can see, the barrel on this motor has had the now familiar fin machining done on it, whereby some or part of the fins have been machined off, and in this particular case it was said to be done to improve the cooling, although others do this kind of work for either the aesthetic looks of the motor or just to reduce the overall weight of the engine itself, although the jury is still in session to decide if this particular improvement here makes any difference to the running of the engine. Now, once again, the gearbox, as you'd expect, is not the old stock gears that would have been fitted to these power plants in the 1960s, and in this Balco BSA's case here, it has a CCM Quaife 3-speed gear train, which again is another very popular upgrade on these racing BSA motors. Now, in terms of the engine's fueling, we have an AML concentric carburetor that's been fitted to our Balco 475 engine, and these old concentrics have served British motorcycling well over the years, and they were fitted to many different makes and models of British bikes back in the day. Now, more upgrades once again on this BSA Victor motor is this external oil filter system, which is a major improvement on the old in the frame type filtration system that these Rickman chassis used to have. And the other plus point of this improved system here is that the filter cartridge is quite easily accessible for any maintenance that may be required. But as you can gather, this is no ordinary stock BSA Victor engine, as there's been quite a substantial amount of money and improvements done on this motor. But like I said, when Paul builds a bike, it's certainly no ordinary run-of-the-mill machine. But there's just one final thing to mention on this Victor motor, was that it also had one of these upgraded decompressor buttons fitted into the side of the cylinder, which again was much easier to operate than maybe having a cable or lever mounted on the handlebars. Now, with regards to the Balco BSA's front end, I think it's been fitted here with a pair of Italian-made Seriani suspension units, and these top and bottom fork yokes or triple clamps are also a pair of Seriani parts. But once again, the Seriani suspension units are a very popular choice on these Rickman frame kits, and to be fair, they do a decent job, and that's probably why they're also used on a variety of other makes and models of motorcycles around the world. Although it has to be said that there still wasn't a lot of scope on these forks for adjustments to the rebound and damping settings, but with softer or stiffer springs, or maybe using lighter or heavier oil inside each leg, you could certainly improve the operation of these Italian Serianis. Now, if you're a BSA fanatic and you're quite familiar with the parts fitted onto these old school BSAs, but these alloy wheel hubs here may not look too familiar to you, and that's more than likely because these are actually micro hubs that have had their ribs machined off, and then the alloy is then polished. Although in the past I've also seen these micro hubs used on reproduction CCM bikes, because of course original magnesium hubs for those bikes are almost impossible to find nowadays. And so as we move to the back end of this Balco BSA, we have a set of very good quality British made rock shocks, which again are an excellent choice for these old classic race bikes. And the Rock Shocks manufacturing company in Wilstead in Bedford can supply all manner of suspension systems for these classic dirt and even road bikes. And again, these guys are a very good contact if you're looking for rear shocks for your older classic motorcycle. Now, normally with these Rickman motorcycle kits, they usually come with either a plastic or GRP fuel tank, but once again, Paul's just went that little bit one better on this Victor special here, and he's fitted this lovely sculpted alloy fuel tank that was made by alloy shaping wizard Terry Weedy from Eastleigh in Southampton. Now, Terry again specialises in making these handcrafted alloy fuel tanks for every make or model of classic race bike, and he's even been known to produce one-off special products if you need a custom built fuel tank for a special machine. Now, this tank also comes complete with a Monza style locking fuel cap, and it also has a twin fuel tap system that's fitted onto either side of the bottom of the tank, which is another little upgrade on the original single fuel tap system. Now, with regards these very nice Balco BSA Metisse graphics that are fitted to the tank, I was never actually told who made them, but as you can see, they're again very high quality and certainly complement that nice alloy fuel cell. Now, as we move to the bike's wheels, now the front and rear wheel spindles on this machine and all of their associated spacers and brake parts were all machined specifically for this Balco BSA, and Paul said that the fabrication of these parts did take quite some time, and as it turned out, they all fitted perfectly when they were bolted on to their associated wheels. And so as we move to the business end of the bike now, Paul opted to fit a pair of these SE Pro Taper or 7/8 handlebars to give them their full title, and the clutch and brake levers again are quite high quality Magura parts, and just for super safety, an engine kill switch was also bolted on to the clutch side just in case of any problems with that very precious and expensive Victor engine. Now, the throttle gasser again is a very good quality unit, although its origins of manufacture I'm not entirely sure about, but it'll still do a very decent job of keeping control of all of those horses that are just waiting to be unleashed from that highly tuned 475 Victor motor. Now, once more, as far as I'm aware, the seat that's fitted to this Balco BSA machine is essentially the very same part that comes with the Rickman frame kit when you purchase it, although I have to say it's quite well made, and it should just about provide enough padding for even the most petite of posteriors. Now, that just about brings us around to the bike's bodywork, and more specifically this green metal flake colour on its panels. But it's like I've always said in the past, that that's the beauty of these Rickman frame kits, is that if you can dream it up, then you can have it painted onto these panels. And Paul, of course, wanted this Rickman Metisse Victor to be very different from all of the other BSA Victors that are going around, and by choosing this bright green metal flake colour, I think that Paul's achieved just that, and he's certainly given this particular BSA the wow factor. Although I have to say, without doubt, this is still a very special kind of machine with that fantastic nickel-plated Rickman Metisse chassis, the radical and somewhat extreme colour scheme, and of course that fantastic 475 BSA Victor motor that's had all of those upgrades and tuning done to its internals. Although I have to say that this featured Balco BSA Scrambler is very typical of the kind of machines that Paul turns out, because in the past I've seen more of his Balco handiwork in some of the fantastic trials machines that Paul builds, and again, those trials machines are every bit as radical as this BSA Victor bike. But if you needed a more in-depth and detailed background on the build and construction of this very unique motorcycle, then you could try and get your hands on a copy of issue number 76 of the VMX magazine, as I did write a feature on this bike for that magazine back in the day, and it has a much more detailed story of how and why this bike was all put together. Although, like the colour scheme or not, there's certainly no denying that this is still a very unique motorbike, and one thing is for sure, you'll never come across another one exactly like it. Well, I do hope you enjoyed that walk around that quite unique old BSA Scrambler, that Rickman Metisse 475 BSA Victor that was put together by Paul Balsillie at Balco Motorcycles. Okay, coming up next, we did say that as soon as we had more information on this machine, then we would post the video, so that will be my next video posting here on Classic Dirt Bike TV, as we take a look at this quite unusual and rare Honda Berg. Now, this is a bike that was made up of a CR250 Honda two-stroke chassis with a big four-stroke Husaberg single-cylinder engine in the frame. So we'll be taking a look at this quite unusual machine when we return here on my channel. But until the next time, of course, everybody continue to be safe and well out there when you're riding those old classic or vintage race bikes, and hope to see you back here again very soon to talk about more of this old school vintage iron right here on your #1 and favourite Classic Dirt Bike TV channel.